All right. Welcome to everybody. We are here today for the URISA Texas Speaker Series event, and we have joining us Oly Powers. Oly is a GISP. She hails from north of the border, but she recently now has dual citizenship after many years being a adopted Texan. And she works as a GIS analyst for the City of Rockwall. She is an expert at using the power of cartography and programming and analytics to provide data-driven decisions for the city. And she has served many years on the URISA Texas Board of Directors. She volunteers with a number of organizations in and around GIS. And she is going to be talking with us today about making your asset management data work for you. So, Oly, I will stop screen sharing so that you can take it away.
Thanks, Liz. All right, let's just get this set up here. All right, and can everybody see my screen? I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, thanks, Liz, for that amazing introduction there. So again, my name is Oly Powers. I have over a decade of experience in both the public and private sector, as well as NGOs in both Canada and the US. And for the last 4 years, I've been a GIS analyst with the City of Rockwall. And today I'm going to be talking to you about making your asset management data work for you. So let's get started here. So for those of you who are not sure where Rockwall is, we're in Texas, obviously, east of Dallas on the shores of Lake Ray Hubbard. Now, in recent years, Rockwall has been exploding. We've had tremendous growth. And Rockwall's traditionally been little town, that homegrown town kind of feeling to it. But we've just had a lot of population growth lately. So, but that being said, generally we've been told to do more with less because that's what you did back in the day. But with the growth that we've been receiving, that's becoming more and more difficult to do. So back before the pandemic, Rockwall actually was looking for a new asset management system, and they decided to go with CityWorks. Now, the stuff I'm going to be showing you today is actually going to be applicable to any asset management system, whether you're using CityWorks or any system really. But that's what we're using. But back in 2018, the city implemented the AMS side of CityWorks. So that's going to be for the actual asset management. And then smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, they went live with the permitting side of CityWorks system. Now, and this has been running for a few years. We've had these systems for 6 and 4 years. So we've accumulated quite a bit of data in this time, which is great. This is what you want. You want your asset management system to go out there. You want to collect that data, and then you want to do cool things with it. So we have all this data, and I was kind of like, what do we do with it now? And it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You have so much of it, you're not sure what to do with it. So a few years ago, I went to an asset management conference for the first time, and I was really excited to go to this conference so I could get these ideas, so I can start working with this data that we had just sitting in our database. So what's the whole, and now I went to that conference and I was really excited, and I was a little bit disappointed though, because what I wanted, I did not get out of the conference. It was a really good technical conference. They had a lot of stuff if you were trying to fix issues with the softwares, or other ideas of what other things you could do with the actual software itself, but not what to do with the data. So this presentation is kind of stemming from, this is what I wished I had at that conference. So what are my goals for you to take out of this conference today? Well, I want to show you the options of what you can do with your data, the types of data that you can use, and just what you can do with it. And then also, I want you to have ideas from this. So you might not be using the same type of data that I am, but you should be able to take these ideas and apply it to what you have in your organization. So we're going to be using, I've got 3 examples for you of the applications that I've built with our asset management data today. And I've got kind of like a no code, moderate code, and high code options for you so that you have different ideas. So the first one I'm going to be showing you today is the residential building permits. application that we made. So this one's a moderate code one. So this one we're using Python. I'm going to be using a CityWorks eURL tool, as well as Esri dashboards. So what was this? So this lovely image here of this lovely spreadsheet on the side, this used to be what we used to track subdivision status when I first got to the city. For reasons I'm not going to get into right now. They're very good reasons, but just don't have time for it. The city uses Google Docs and as well as Google Sites for our planning and zoning. It had originally turned into, it was just for document management, and then we actually turned it to a live site. But this is actually the page that we were using for subdivision status. And you can see here we had our subdivision name, we had total lots available in the subdivision, how many were built, how many were vacant. And this was a pretty manual process. I mean, it's a spreadsheet essentially, and it was being updated. The spreadsheet itself was being updated by somebody in planning. Our plans examiner would actually take, if you clicked on these links, it would open up the PDF of the plat for that subdivision. Our plans examiner would then take that plat and put into Bluebeam and then manually like color in every single lot that had been built as the building permits were coming in. And it was just very manual, it was very tedious. There was really no reason for this. But quite a few departments were using this. So our building inspections department was using this page, our planning and zoning department was using this page, as well as Rockwall PD was also using this to pre-plan their routes. So we had quite a few departments that were using this information, but it was all very manual, and there was a better way of doing that. So here's what we did. So that's what the old one looked like. And here's what the new version of this looks like. So we created a dashboard of it, and it's also completely automated. So there's no more, our plans examiner does not have to go in Bluebeam anymore and color in lots on this. So we have directly from our asset management system how many single family residential permits have been issued today. We have how many lots are available for building on, and then we have our subdivisions here on the side. And you can go to any of these and it will zoom in onto the map and it'll show you the available lots. So as I've zoomed out, the parcels will disappear, but when you zoom in, any green parcel available, that is a free lot that is available to build on. So that's the dashboard side. This is a huge improvement from a single spreadsheet to look at, not to mention we don't have to touch this anymore. This application has been running for close to 3 years now, and we have had no problems with it. So how did we build this? Well, first up, we had to prepare the data. So we're using data from different sources. So internally, we're using our GIS parcel data and our subdivision data. From CityWorks, the asset management side, we're using an eURL to pull our issued permits for building permits and then our issued demo permits. So what are we doing with that data? So with the parcel data, all we're doing is actually updating an attribute in our parcel data. So whether that parcel is a built parcel or a vacant parcel. So that's going to happen using the data from the eURLs. Once those parcels have been updated with that attribute, then we're going to go in and we're going to update the subdivision data. So that's really going to do that count of how many lots were built and how many lots were vacant. And then we're going to update our subdivision status. From there, I was able to create, once we had all that Python script built out, I was able to create a very simple batch file, and then I used task scheduler to run that file every day. So let's look at some Python. So, and of course, I can't move this. Here we are, because the Zoom window is in the way. All right, so this is what the actual Python data itself looks like. So this is just running all the functions that we've built. So the first one here, again, is a very simple query. We're going in, we're checking the parcel data against our inspection or the permit, and it's just updating that field. Same thing with the demo. It's doing the opposite. It's looking whether it's vacant or not. And then we go in and we're actually using some update cursors, and we're going to go check for what the status is. Rockwall considers any subdivision that is less than 10 years old to be a new subdivision. So after 10 years, if the subdivision is not completely built out, it's considered an established subdivision. So we update the numbers here, and then we check to see whether it's a complete subdivision, under construction, or established. Once that's been finished, we do another update, and if it is older, if the subdivision is older than 10 years, it changes the subdivision to established, and then it comes out of that cycle. So you're not going to be able to see it in this dashboard anymore. It will leave. So only new subdivisions are going to be there. So once we had the automation, which is the key, which is, again, we don't have to touch this anymore. It's all being done for us every day. We created the web map. So it was a really simple web map to create. We just threw it on ArcGIS Online. We set some filters so that we're only looking at single-family residential lots, and those that are considered to be new. I did include the EURL itself into the map just to make it easier for the dashboard, but that is not actually being displayed on the web map. So, and then in the dashboard, it was a pretty simple dashboard to build. We just had some simple indicators. We had the list of our available subdivisions and how many vacant lots they have available. And then again, we've got our map feature here as a whole, so that if you go to click on one of those subdivisions, you can see the available lots that are there. So the good, bad, and the data. So pros. So this is fully automated. I have not had any issues with this in the 3 years that it's been running. So that's been great. It's updated daily. So we have no delay between when permits are being issued versus what are the available lots. And we're using our asset management data to update our GIS, which is huge. I don't have to have a technician sit there and input this in. It's just being done. This has increased our open data and our government transparency, and we've also increased the usage from this. So before, this was only being used the data was only being used internally by our planning and zoning, our building inspections, and our police departments. Now this is also available to the public. So, and there's been a huge increase in this, especially with realtors and developers. They've been using it a lot, and they have really liked having that tool available to them. The cons. So there is going to be a little bit. The initial input for this is going to deal with human error. Our permit technicians who are taking these initial building permits, they have to input all this. And if something's not correct, if the address is not totally right, it could put that pin somewhere else on the map. So if it's in the middle of the street on a street center line versus actually on a parcel, then that parcel is not going to be flagged as built or vacant. So we have to make sure that stuff, but we spot check it occasionally, and honestly, there hasn't been that many issues, but occasionally. The other thing with this is, so at the time when this was built, we had a bug with our ArcGIS enterprise installation where it could not actually run anything off the server. So I had to actually build all the stuff off my desktop computer, which is not ideal. We have since had that bug fixed. I just have not moved this over to our server yet, which I would need to do that because the server is going to have a lot more redundancy in case of something happening. So we don't want that. And then the data, I did a recent screenshot of the data usage over the last year for this dashboard, and it gets used every day, both internally and externally. So it's getting pretty good usage, as you can see from there. So this was just something that people were having to manually do this, that they did not need to be manually doing this. So again, none of us have to touch it anymore. It's been running smoothly for 3 years, and we've increased usage of it. So. All right, up next, we've got our restaurant inspection scores. So we actually just found out last week we won an award for this application. So this is going to be a major code example here for you. Again, we're going to be using permit data for this, but this is going to be for our food service permit. So this one's going to involve SQL views, spatial views. We're using Python as well as an Esri dashboard on this one. So this here is the restaurant inspection scores dashboard, where you can find what your local restaurants have scored on their food inspections. So you can either zoom in on the map, go around and You can manually click on a restaurant to see what its food scores are, or you can go through the list here. You have the option of that. And then available, when you click on it, either on the list or on the map there, you'll have your restaurant name and then their most current food score and the date that that inspection was done. And then you have all the available ones as well. When I did this presentation the first time, I didn't have this set up, but you can also check to see what the actual report is. So we have that available. So all the available reports are here at your fingertips as well. You don't have to put in an open records request for this anymore. So that's how the dashboard works. So first of all, why did we make this? So this here was kind of our old version of this. It was just a list on the city's website. It's okay, I guess, but could have been better. But the main reason why we did this was because when we had implemented the CityWorks system in 2020, all of this went online. So, but this portion here was still being done manually. So out in the field, our health inspector will go out, do her inspection, and then she'll input everything into CityWorks right then and there. And that is live in the database. Except now she was still having to email the report to our health coordinator, and the health coordinator would have to take those emails and then input them manually into another software that was created for us by our IT team. But it was all double entry. On top of that, our health coordinator is kind of doing 5 people's jobs at the same time. She does not have the time to be doing this. It's just double entry. This was redundant. Also, she was only doing it when she had the time, and that wasn't very often. So these scores were not being updated online very often. So who knows when they would have had the latest. This one here says their last inspection was in 2023, but it could have been more recent, but it could have just been that long since the coordinator had been able to actually update this information. So there was no reason for this. We already have this information in our database. We needed to come up with a better solution, so we did. So for those of you who are not familiar with CityWorks, this is what our CityWorks face looks like. So everything is in here that we need. We don't need to be doing double entry, but there's 4 criteria. Because there's so much information, however, there's 4 criteria that we chose to filter out all our data. So one, our food inspection cases had to be active. They had to be not expired. This establishment type, this is a further thing that we use to filter down our data here. We do inspections on things like hotels, school cafeterias, the county jail. These things do not need to be on the restaurant score dashboard. So we're using this establishment type criteria here to just further filter out things that should not be on a restaurant scores. As well as it needs to actually have a score. Any new restaurant, it's not going to have its first routine service inspection until probably 6 months later. So it had to have a score. So these are the criteria that we're looking at to build this dashboard off of. So and so what did we do? So we ended up making 3 different views to get all this data together. So and we did this in SQL. So unlike the previous example where I was able to use an URL, I was not able to use a URL for this for 2 reasons. One, that this criteria here, that is a custom field. So an URL is not able to pull out that custom information for me. Secondly, the way the data is pulling back, it's pulling it as a one-to-one relationship. So if you notice here, this is going to be the result of that first view. I have 3 results here for McDonald's. There's probably actually many more, but we have 3 here. There should be 1 because there's only 1 McDonald's in Rockwall, but I have 1 for every single inspection. So this is a one-to-one. I needed a one-to-many relationship with this. But what I ended up doing with this first view here is just getting all the data together. I'm pulling data from 4 different tables, and we're just compiling that here, and we've got a simple list here. On our second view, this looks a little crazy, but we'll show you here. We've we've used case expressions to compile this data all together. Now, case expressions are going to be very static. So I had to, and I didn't know actually how to do this when I started this process. I did use AI tools to help me learn how to do it. I didn't get the AI to write the code for me. I used it to learn. That being said, if I don't know how to do it, if something goes wrong, I won't know how to fix it. So using AI was really helpful to learn faster. But what we did here was we took all those individual scores, so all those individual records, and we pushed them into their own fields with the case expressions. So this looks kind of crazy. A lot of it is copy and paste. So, but doing so, I decided to go down to all the way from 2020 to 2040. And I did this for 3 reasons. One, by 2040, I'll either have figured out how to make this more dynamic so I don't have to have static fields in here. 2, that's almost 20 years from now, so we may be using a different software by then. Who knows? This application might be non-existent anymore. And 3, I might be retired by then, so it'll be somebody else's problem at that point. But that's how we went about with this. Now, I also want to say that the development of this application was not linear. There was a lot of back and forth. This whole application took about a year of development on and off. Like I would work on it for 2 days and then not touch it for 2 months. So there was a lot of back and forth. So what you're seeing here was not how we started with this. And then the last view is we're taking all that data that you saw in here, and we're making it a spatial view. So that's how we created the spatial view there. And it pretty much just makes dots on a map for us, which is what we wanted. So we joined it with our address point data, and that's how we were able to make that data spatially available. So now if you'll notice here in the attribute table, it's got the same thing that we saw in the SQL tables there. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that we're using an M dash for null values here. And I had to do that to make the web map portion dynamic. We were having a lot of problems with null fields. It wasn't playing nicely when we tried to make the web map itself dynamic. So this was our solution to that one. It looks a little better, and it's really hard to type an M dash. Like you cannot accidentally type an M dash, whether you're using Windows or Macintosh. It's just, you have to press a lot of keys to get that. So that was a nice way to solve that problem. So those are the 3 views that make this up. And so you might think, okay, well, that was the hard part. No, it's still not done. Unfortunately, so once we got the spatial view going, we tried it a few times. It was running extremely slow. Looking just at web data, if a website takes longer than 3 seconds to load, you're going to lose over 40% of your viewers on it. Now, we're not trying to sell anything, but we don't want people calling the office, being like, hey, your website is slow, I need to know this stuff. So we want to prevent that. Additionally, like if a website takes longer than 5 seconds to load, Google is not even going to rank it. So it was important to kind of speed up the loading of the websites, and the spatial view was just not doing it. So we ended up writing a really quick append script that would copy the data over into a feature class in our SDE, and then we serve that out as a web service, and that sped it up tremendously. So that was really easy to do. And again, we just wrote that into a batch file, and then we run that with Task Scheduler. So that was a really quick fix and for that problem. And you can see here, like this, here's the script. It runs 2 lines of code. It's really fast. So, and that runs daily. So we've got almost near real-time code there for that, or data for that. So once we have that, our data's up, now we had to configure the web map. So this is where this is where a lot of the back and forth happened. So actually I will show you here in the live web map. So we're configuring a pop-up, and this is going to be the main feature of this web map that then feeds the dashboard. So we had to make a lot of case expressions, and this might make you go cross-eyed. It's a lot. But the good thing is a lot of it is copy and paste, and then you're just changing variables. So it actually was pretty quick once we figured out the best way to do it. The worst one is actually going to be that current score modifier. This one's the worst piece, and this is all using Arcade. And this is where we had to use that M dash in order to run our AFL statements. So, but this is just looking for the most current score. and that's what's going to be populated here in that title block. And then we're using 3 regular fields, and you'll notice we have 177 fields. So we definitely wanted this feature to be dynamic because we're not going to want to show 177 fields. Whether a restaurant didn't exist before we started in 2020 with the system, or the inspections just haven't been done yet, you don't need all these extra fields sitting in there in this pop-up, both on a computer, or if you're looking at this on a phone, that's just taking up screen real estate that you don't need. So, but how we were, so but the other expressions are much simpler. Again, this is a lot of copy and paste and just changing our variables, but these are going to be actually used in this portion here of the pop-ups. So, and how were we able to do that? Well, we used a text field, and we built an HTML table. So, and you can find this code online. I was able to take a lot of it from apps that people had already built, but we built a custom HTML table, and it looks like this in the code. And I know that's also going to make you go cross-eyed. But again, once you have the first 2 lines done, the rest of it's just copy and paste. So it was really easy to get going once we had it. But all it does is it uses those arcade expressions that we built, and that's going to determine whether or not the line itself is showing up. So this makes this truly dynamic. The first version of this that I had built, we weren't sure how to make it dynamic, so we're having to manually go in here every 6 months and like add the next set of fields manually to show up, which was a problem because we had to show everything beforehand. So if like this Dutch Bros did not exist in 2021, I would have all these empty fields for 2021. And that's not what we wanted. So this is how we were able to make this truly dynamic. And again, we don't have to touch this anymore. It runs pretty well. So now that we had the web map going, which application did we use? So we've got dashboards and experience builder. So I actually built this in both of these tools because I wasn't sure which one was going to be the best. So dashboards, it was really easy to drag and drop elements in. It was really easy to make it look good. However, when I started the project, only a desktop view was available for that. So I couldn't really configure this for a phone or a tablet, which was kind of troublesome. And a lot of people are using their phones these days, so it needed to look good. And the desktop view did not work on the phone at all. So at the time, it looked like Experience Builder was going to be the winner. And Experience Builder has a ton of widgets. We can configure it for multiple devices. And I think it actually has a much better search functionality than the dashboard does. But I did like the way the table looked better in a dashboard. I feel like the Experience Builder tables are very databasey, and it just didn't look good. So, however, partway through this, Esri added you could configure for multiple devices on dashboard. So I actually ended up choosing the dashboard because I think it looked better. I just wish they would put the functionality from the tables into dashboard. So that's what we went with. But there's more. So as I said, we can now check out the reports. So this actually came about later because originally we only had the scores available, but we wanted to be able to view the reports. So how did we do that? So our scores or the attachments for these are found on our CityWorks server. However, they're on a secure file storage, which CityWorks can access, but no one else can. So I needed to come up with a solution of how to get these reports available to the public. So what we decided to do was to copy the reports over to the public file storage that we have at the city. So I wrote another Python script that's essentially just going in, it's finding the location from the database from that first view that we've created. And then it's double checking what's already in that file on the public server, seeing which reports are missing and then copying those over. And then the link itself is actually going towards our public server and not the CityWorks database itself. So we can keep that all secure. So, but this was a really good feature to add since like I said, the health inspector told us this was great, but yeah, they're still calling us for open records requests. So we've been able to almost eliminate the open records request by adding this feature. And this actually only took us a couple of days to add on after the fact. So most of the application took a year, but this was only a few days. So it wasn't too bad. And then lastly, our short-term rentals application. So this one's going to be our no-code option. We're going to be using, again, a CityWorks URL for this. We're using Model Builder and then Esri Instant Apps for this one. So this is a fun story. So on March 7th at 4 p.m., my director came to me and said, hey, I need you to build a brand new permit in our permitting system, and I need an GIS application to go with it. And I turned to him and said, haha, funny joke. And he looked at me straight in the eye and said, it needs to be ready to go April 1st. Cool, cool. So he wasn't joking, and I had like 3 weeks to get this thing done. Except I didn't, because I was actually going on vacation in the middle of that time frame. So I had like 2 weeks to do this. So this was a bit of a rush, but it was fun. So if you were to go to our hub site, you'll now find this short-term rentals map, and this is what it looks like here. And this is going to be showing issued permits for a short-term rental with 1,000-foot buffer around non-owner occupied rentals. And this is because the city does not allow more than one non-owner occupied rental in a 1,000-foot space of each other. So this was something that the public had asked for. It had been pretty contentious for several years, and City Council decided to, okay, we're putting this ordinance in. You now require a permit, and this is kind of how we did that. So that's found there. So again, 4 p.m. on March 7th, I was told to build this stuff. So the next day we sat down with everybody who was going to be involved in this. We hashed out all the details. It took us several hours to come up with all these details that we needed. And then we kind of hit the ground running. So the next week on Monday, I started building the permit system for that. Because this is not a how to build CityWorks permits, I'm not going to go into details of that, but I had to bust through that, get the permit built. Went on my vacation, had a great time, came back, and then I had to start the GIS application part. So at this point, I had less than a week to get this to go live, and I needed some ideas quickly to get this up and running. So after some research, I was hoping I could use Arcade to make an on-the-fly buffer in a web map to make that work. However, I found out that wasn't quite possible yet. You can make a graphical buffer with Arcade, but you can't make a geometric buffer, and I needed it to show 1,000 feet, not 1,000 pixels. But I did find the next best solution, and that was an automation with Model Builder. So I found this great video on YouTube from Esri, and they show you actually how to use Model Builder to automate things. I had not, now if you're like me and I hadn't used Model Builder since I was in grad school or undergrad, and back then it was a little buggy. It was not my first choice of something that I wanted to use, and honestly I had not really used it since then. But I watched this video and it kind of did exactly what I needed to do. So now this whole video will go through like the whole process of creating an application, like gathering your data and stuff. So if you want to just look at the automation part of it, if you're going to watch this, scroll into about 44 minutes, and then it'll get into the automation portion. But this here's a screenshot of my model. If you watch the video, you'll see it looks strikingly similar. Again, they did exactly what I needed it to do. So we took our parcel data, we took our EURL from CityWorks, we ran a selection by location, we pulled the parcels out, we created our buffers, we clipped it, we threw it into a web layer to put online, and then scheduled it so that it runs every day. So when new permits are created, it's going to take those issued permits and just update those layers and buffers. And this ran, and I was kind of shocked that it actually worked. But what it does is it's going to create a task scheduler task for you. So you don't have to make a batch file, you don't have to write the Python code, it just does it for you. But one thing to look out for, if you make any changes to your model, you have to rerun the task. Otherwise, it'll be running all your previous tasks. And just to quickly show you here, so we actually did have a little bit of an issue. It stopped working after a little bit. But I was able to get a hold of Esri, like same day they got back to me, and we were able to fix the issue and it was running again. So, and that was just with the delete rows that for some reason was causing an issue. So we replaced that with the truncate table tool, and that fixed it, and it's been running great since. But to get to your history, all you want to do is go into your analysis, history, and then under the schedule tool. So that's where you can see your scheduling for those automated processes. But this has been working really, really well. I'm pretty happy with it. I would definitely recommend that if you need to get something out really quickly like this. And that being said, so I hope you guys got some ideas from this. Even if our data is not the same, these are just a few things that you can use with your data and some apps that you can build. So, and yeah, again, hope that was helpful for somebody.
Wow, Ollie, thank you so much. That was really exciting. Lots of information packed into a really short period of time. You got through a lot real fast. And definitely can see why you won. Was it ESIG, right?
Yes.
Very, very cool. So open the floor to questions. Yeah, lots of good comments in the comment section. I personally love the M dash as a workaround to nulls, or to be able to show there is not a value, but that it's not because data's missing.
Yeah.
So I am going to adopt that myself, I think. Anybody else? Questions? We had about 93 people at, I see 98 are here, so might have a few folks from the audience that want to jump in.
This is Grant with the Port of Houston. Ollie, I'm curious, what did you find the most challenging? You covered a lot of material. It was a bit like drinking water out of fire hose there. What was the most challenging project or most challenging, and why was it?
Probably just anything with the SQL databases were challenging. I'm definitely not a SQL expert. I know how to dabble in it, but learning how to do case expressions, learning all the ins and outs of that on the fly was pretty difficult. But luckily we have great resources on the internet now. So I was able to learn that, but that was probably most challenging. Also just connecting to databases remotely from a Python script. Sometimes we'd have issues and it was something really simple and you're going around in circles trying to figure out why. So just the troubleshooting was probably some of the hardest things. And then you'd figure out something really simple to fix.
Ollie, did you have a DBA at Rockwell that could help you, or were you fully on your own?
We have someone who acts as a DBA. They are not solely a DBA. So they helped me where they could. But a lot of this I was trying to figure out myself.
Got it. Thanks.
I URLs. I have a question about how did you find the like the end users' acceptance of this like new way of doing what they were doing before?
So far, it's been pretty positive. Internally, everyone's been just loving that everything is at their fingertips. They're not having to go through multiple applications anymore. They can just click on the maps and get what they need. Externally, I've heard secondhand that people are just happy that this information is now available, whereas before it was just not available at all to the public, and now it is.
So Ollie, what, yes, I think maybe Jordan or Nick posted earlier. Thank goodness we are recording this and it's going to be up and loaded on the URISA Texas YouTube channel so that we can all go back and rewatch and pick up on some of the things that you talked about. But you did a lot of learning as we all find that we have to do throughout big projects when you need to learn a new skill. So you mentioned finding things online. What were some of the top resources that you found super helpful to reference or to go to when you needed to learn something new?
Obviously just search engines. ChatGPT was extremely helpful in this. We use that a lot. I have just the free version of ChatGPT, so I actually maxed out the number of queries I could do in it. But it was extremely helpful to hone in quickly on what I needed, because if you're going through just regular documentation, and you don't know what you don't know, so it's like, I need to do this, but I don't know the terms that I needed. So ChatGPT was able to quickly guide me towards what I needed, and then I was able to quickly hone in on what to learn and why I needed to learn that. So that was a huge resource that I used.
Very cool. All right, any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, this is Grant again with the Port of Houston. Oly, I'm very impressed with all the different things you've done. Before you started these projects, did you already have some coding experience, or did you just self-teach yourself all of this at project by project? Can you talk about your background and what you knew before you even did these projects, and then kind of what did you have to learn by each project?
Yeah, I had done some coding before. I feel like I was definitely a slow code learner. If you had asked me like 10 years ago to code something, I would have just run screaming in the opposite direction. But just working in municipal government, you have to code just the way technology is evolving. You just really no way around that. So I had done some projects, probably not the best code anybody has ever seen written, and very clunky, but I figured out how to do it. It was really slow. By the time I started working on this stuff, I probably had a better idea of what I was doing. But I still had to learn a ton. Most of my Python coding would have been using like ArcPy, and that set of libraries. But for this one, I had to learn or import some new libraries, work with some libraries I've never worked with before. I had to learn a lot of new SQL. I could do basic SQL queries before, but I had to really learn how to do that. So I would say I'd be like beginner intermediate before, and before I started these projects. I'm still going to consider myself intermediate. I don't want to say I'm an expert at this at all. There's a lot of stuff I know going in dealing with security, dealing with a lot of stuff on here that I don't understand. I'm probably not doing correctly, but we need to get the ball rolling. So I'm just glad I was able to get things working and to stabilize it, because I know before the code that I had written before wouldn't be very stable. It would work once, but then not again. So I'm pretty happy with where I am with this.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
So Ollie, do you have any people in your organization now that they know you're so great at spinning up these web applications that are asking you to use the URLs to spin up something that shows off their work to the public?
As of right now, no. The problem with doing what we do is that we just make the end product look good. So a lot of the times they're just going to use that. And again, as I mentioned, we're all kind of we're at the City of Rockwall, we're kind of drinking from a fire hose. We're all doing 5 people's jobs. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of time for us to come up with these cool ideas. All of these things have been as a result of something like someone's needed this to happen, so we've made it happen. But I haven't had, unfortunately, I don't get to sit here and be like, okay, what else am I gonna come up with for a solution for this? So I would love to, but we're really swamped right now, and all the departments are in the same boat as GIS is. We're all just trying to kind of get through the day. So
Yeah, I think that most people in the geospatial world find that that's pretty common. I think everybody on the call is probably like me, nodding along. I do think we are often under-resourced.
yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I don't know that they even know to ask us.
Mhm.
I double as our GIS analyst and our city works administrator. So a lot of the time people are kind of like, oh, I know you're busy. I know you're busy. I don't want to bug you with this. And I wish they would bug me with that because that'd be something cool I can do in between all the other mundane tasks I have to do.
Yeah, and I think there are a number of folks who don't understand all of the capabilities and the power of GIS outside of what they experience in their small little, single application or their particular need, and they don't necessarily always know to think spatial solutions first and include you in, design up front. So
Yeah, no, 100%. We've gotten a little better at it, but it's still pretty often that GIS is kind of like the afterthought on things versus we should be like one of the first people you're talking to because one, we can probably get a solution to you a lot cheaper. We can do it in-house and then but then we're just being kind of tacked on the back end, being like, oh yeah, okay, now make this work.
yeah. And I see, Grant, you're asking for the link to that Houston event. I did not have that actually provided in the notes. So if Nick maybe has it, we can get that posted as well. And yeah, so Matt, I may butcher your last name, Creel, is asking, how did you get to Rockwall from Toronto?
I married a Texan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, in answer to the event link, I think Jordan answered it too, but yeah, that event is not yet live. It should be live within the next week or so.
Cool. Thanks for that. All right. Yes, we will be updating a lot of events coming up with URISA Texas. As a reminder, please go fill out the salary survey, and that would be fantastic. Make sure the other event that is not yet live, but will be very soon, is going to be our speaker series next month with Michelle Williams, the Survey 123 Jedi. And then there are going to be a number of other things coming up here in the last half of the year. So thanks everybody for coming today. PDHs will go out here in the next week or so, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Thanks, Liz.